So how much is, each element taking? Can anybody tell me? I'll repeat the question. If each element, if all these three elements are taking 12 columns, how much is each element taking? How many columns is each element taking? Okay, 4. That's right. So we'll put 4 columns for each of these elements, right? That's exactly something which we would want to do. So let's say for the first one, I would give div class. And here, if I want all these 3 elements to take equal amount of space, I don't even have to mention anything. I would just write call, and that's it. And I would have, multiple columns. Let's say I have 3 columns within this. Okay. And within the first column, I'm just putting in some data. Let me just reduce the amount of data which I had. So I just put the paragraph and my contact in the first one. And then I would put, this unordered list in the ordered list in the second one with the image. And I would put, let me just comment this unordered list, and let me just put this entire, let me put this unordered list in the third one. Okay. So now I have saved this. Let's go and see how our web page looks. So now you can see that our web page has some sort of a layout, but it's not really something which I am liking. So this part is coming in a very small space, and these kind of things are coming over here. So I don't want this. I want that my web page should look proper, right? So what I would want to do is probably give to the last one, I want to give very small space. Let's say only 2 columns, and for the middle one, I want to give let's say 4 columns. And how much is left? It's 6 columns which is left. This is something which I want to give to the first column. Now, if I try to refresh this, now as you can see that this part is coming. This is having more space, and then we have these 3. Let me put the heading above the paragraph as well. Okay, so now we have to do something about this login and register as well, right? So now this form is there, and let me create a new row over here. Now within this row, I would create a new column. This is something which I'm just following the Bootstrap documentation. So as you can see that in the Bootstrap documentation, they have given this kind of a layout, right? Okay, so I'll begin my form within the div. And then put the remaining items in the first one. Let's say username and password. And then in the next column, maybe I would want to use the register part. And then let's say in the last column, I want to put the submit button. And then finally, I'm putting my field set and end form within my div. So this is how I have thought that, I would lay out my page. Let me refresh this. So now, okay, I have one row which has, these three items, and these three items I have put, some number of columns for. So the last column is having very few columns to spare. This one is having some space, and this one is having the maximum space. Even in the logging part, there is this, registration part in which I have the select, and then we have this, username and password. And the last column could not take up space over here, so it came down. So this is also possible, and the reason for that is in this id register we have given so much of padding um, for this particular div. Okay, we have given so much of padding, right? So let's not give so much, and let's refresh it. So now you would be able to see that we definitely have some better layout than earlier. Okay, so this is how you could use Bootstrap. And now you can even change, how your layout would look for different devices. So for example, just concentrate on the first row. I have given it column 6, 4, and 2 for my device. Let's say if I have a smaller device, so my device is LG, right? So if I just make this LG and save, and refresh, this is no different because my device is large. But let's say for a smaller device, I want to change how it looks. So for a smaller device, I don't want everything to take up all the space. I want one after the other. So I would tell one element to take up the entire space. So if I have SM, and then I would tell 12. So if I just put 12, that means how much, how many columns it is spanning? It is spanning 12 columns, right? 12 columns means one element, 12 columns, that means the next element will automatically come down. Okay, so 12, 12, and 12, that means one would be definitely above each other. Now for my large device, it is not changing. But if I reduce the pixel space, as you can see, as soon as I reduced my size to a particular pixel, then till here, and this is something which you can even see, if I press function key on your keyboard and F12. Okay, as soon as you press function key on your keyboard and F12, here on the right hand side you will be able to see, as I'm resizing, you will be able to see the pixels values. As soon as it came after a particular pixel, then you can see that it is coming one above the other. So this is heading paragraph, it is coming first, and then you have my favorite course coming second, and then you have the unordered list coming the third. And this is going to keep on happening until the screen becomes the smallest. And this is how you would have your responsive web design for different screen sizes. Now what are these screen sizes? Let's go back to the documentation. What are these screen sizes? So if you check breakpoints within the layout, you will see that they have, this. I put call LG. LG means large. I put call SM. SM means small. But you can also put MD, which is medium, XL, which is extra large, XSL, which is extra extra large. And these are the dimensions. So we saw that for 992 pixels, everything was good. But as soon as it came below 992 pixels, then whatever I defined for small devices, that came automatically for medium devices as well. So small and medium had one above the other, and large had all the three columns side by side, and even the same thing would be taken up by extra large and extra extra large, because whatever I defined, that is called the break point, and beyond the break point everything is going to be the same. So above 992 everything is same, above 576 everything is same. Okay, so this is how you would use Bootstrap breakpoints and have your layout done in your page. If you want to add any components, so Bootstrap provides so many components. There are so many components. Like you could see carousel, and carousel is having various slides available for you. So for example, this is how you could put images within your carousel, or if you want to show alerts. So if you want these such kind of alerts, all you need to do is put the relevant class of Bootstrap. So what you did, first thing is include Bootstrap in your web page. Okay. Second thing is go to the Bootstrap documentation, check how you would use the code of Bootstrap and use the classes defined by Bootstrap in your web page. Third thing, just put those classes in the relevant elements and you will be good to use it. I put my relevant classes call within the div class, and this class I did not have to define. This is already defined in the Bootstrap, which I have included using these lines. So similarly, if you just put class alert and alert primary, that is going to give you this kind of a blue alert box. Okay. Similarly, you have so many different options. You can add various buttons defined by Bootstrap. We can do that. We can add any particular button defined by Bootstrap. So if I just copy this button over here, and let's say for where I have submit, let me just put button instead of writing primary, I would write submit, and let me comment out this button. So now initially my button was looking like this, but now when I refresh, you can see my button now looks something like this, because this is how I'm using the Bootstrap button of primary. So you can have these different types of buttons available for you. You could have different types of drop downs available for you, different types of models available for you. You could have progress bar. You could add these kind of progress bars. So these are so many good options. All you need to do, and this is something which programmers really like best, is copy and paste. Copy from here, paste in your code, use these different components. So this is really good about Bootstrap. So if you have any questions about Bootstrap, you can just put it up on chat, and I'll be able to see and reply to you, or we can take those questions after this lecture. Okay. So this is just an introduction of Bootstrap. You can simply go to the Bootstrap documentation and you will be good in using Bootstrap. Now let's begin with JavaScript. Okay. Now, how many of you feel that JavaScript and Java are same, or at least similar? Yeah, they are different, definitely. It's a very famous thing that the similarity between JavaScript and Java is the same similarity which you will find in car and carpet. Both start with car, but car and carpet are so different, right? Similarly, JavaScript and Java both are very different. It's just that their name begins with Java. Okay, so JavaScript is essentially an object-based scripting and programming language, and Java is an object-oriented programming language. So the use of both of them is different. Java is used to create web applications. It's used to create Android applications, desktop applications, etc. JavaScript is used to mainly create the website front end. You can also create the backend of JavaScript using Node.js runtime, and you also have a NoSQL database called MongoDB, which also uses the JavaScript format. But the point is that Java and JavaScript, the uses of both of them are different. Even the paradigms or the thought process behind creating programs in Java and JavaScript is very different. Now, once we have understood that Java and JavaScript are different, let me tell you about the popularity of JavaScript. JavaScript is often chosen as the first language to learn. So if anybody does not know any other programming language, JavaScript is the best language you can start with. Okay. And one of the reasons for that is front end of a website, you can only code with JavaScript. There is no possibility of using any other programming language. So you have to know JavaScript if you want to create anything in the front end. Even in the back end, you can use, framework like Express.js, which uses Node.js. That is something which you can use. And even the database side, you can use MongoDB, which uses, the JavaScript syntax. So also a very popular way of exchanging data. So from the front end, you want to pass the data to the backend, and from the backend you want to get the data in the front end. That method of exchanging data is called as JSON, JavaScript Object Notation, and that is also so similar to JavaScript syntax. So it's JavaScript is really popular. If you can see, there was a survey made on Stack Overflow website of most popular technologies used by professional developers. You can see JavaScript is the first one which is used in the programming, scripting, and markup languages section. Also over here, you could see another another survey which is done again on Stack Overflow, and it ranked by popularity, and you can see that JavaScript is the highest, has the highest, number of projects on GitHub and number of tags on Stack Overflow. So JavaScript is like really, really popular. Okay, just do one thing: go to LinkedIn.com or any other website and go into jobs and type JavaScript. You will see there are so many jobs for JavaScript engineers. Okay, people who know JavaScript, people who can create front end using JavaScript and even create back end using JavaScript. So that is really, really, really hot, really, really important for you to know. So definitely consider learning JavaScript. And we have, a JavaScript learning in our entire course. And you might be knowing about the entire program which we have, right? Masters in Full Stack Development. There we teach JavaScript a lot. Today, I'm just going to introduce the JavaScript programming language, show you certain things which you can do using JavaScript. So the first thing which I want you to do is open any page on Google Chrome or even a normal tab. That's also fine. I'll just open. Um, I would open the Master Certification Program course page, but it doesn't matter which page you have opened. The point is, when you press F12 on your machine, um, uh, function key and F12, you will see, the elements tab which we saw yesterday. Now we will continue working on the console tab. Now in this console, if you write any code in JavaScript, you can simply open console on your browser and run it. That's how easy you can run JavaScript, you know, in even Visual Studio Code. Again, it's very good to create JavaScript in Visual Studio Code. Simply create a new file and save the file with a JS extension. So here, as you can see, a JavaScript extension, and I would write, let's say, custom JavaScript, okay, and I save it. So now in my folder, you can see my custom.js file is stored, okay. Now, here you would automatically get a kind of terminal in which you would be able to get the output. Okay, so instead of seeing the output over here, I would prefer writing on the console and showing to you, because this is something which you can do very easily. Just open F12 console and you would see over here. Let's try to alert something to the user. If I just type alert, and where does the world of programmers begin with? It begins with hello world, right? So I would write hello world and enter. You can see that skilling.com says hello world. Although skilling.com is not saying hello world, I have made it to say hello world by putting JavaScript over here. Okay. Similarly, I can prompt the user to enter something. So I would say enter your name. And so now it would prompt the user to enter something. So I would put my name, although I'm not doing anything, but yeah, I could actually assign my name into a particular variable. So I would write var name. Var name means that this is a variable of the name, and in this, I want to get some value from the user. So enter your name. Now I would put Rafat and okay. So now it's saying undefined. So nothing is returned. If I now want to check what is the value in name, here I get the value which I have entered. So try to do this. Try to open your console, try to prompt and assign it to var name or var anything else, and you will be able to then see what you have entered in this particular value. So anytime until this window is loaded, you will have this name stored, Rafat, or whatever you have entered. Another thing is just to ask the user to do something, that is using the confirm box. Okay, so I can simply confirm, are you sure? And now it is asking me, are you sure? I can simply press OK or cancel. So these are some of the things which you can use JavaScript to interact with the user. I saw how we could assign some value to the name, right? That's something which I showed you. So how does that get assigned? So basically in your computer memory, you have, let's say this, all these blocks are your computer memory, okay? And in these different blocks, you are essentially creating a variable with a particular name. Let's say A. If I write var A, means A is the name, and A is pointing to a particular memory. And if I assign any value to A, so I can assign an integer 3, and that 3 would reside in that memory. Okay. Remember, the names of these variables cannot be keywords of the JavaScript programming language. What are keywords? Like, for example, var. Var is something which I use to tell to the user that this is going to be a variable. So I cannot write var because then var is a keyword of JavaScript, right? So I cannot use that. So there are many keywords in JavaScript. You will understand when you go ahead in JavaScript programming language. So you cannot use keyword as a name of a variable, but yeah, A is the name of a variable, and what is the value in the variable? 3. So if I ask you what is the value which I have assigned to the name, to the variable name, what is the value which was assigned to my variable name? Can you mention it on the chat? I just assigned some value to the variable name. What is that value which I had assigned? No, so that is 3 is the value which I assigned to the variable named A. No, wait, let me show you. So I am asking what was the value which I had assigned to this particular variable with the name of name. Can somebody remember? If I press enter, what is the value which I would get over here? Yeah, Rafat, right? Because that is my name which I had put in my variable of the name. Okay. So yeah, I think I can assign anything. I can assign a number. I can assign a string. So what I assigned Rafat is actually a string. The number which I assigned to variable A3, that is a number. I can even assign, other things in JavaScript, like I can assign a function, I can assign an object, I can assign a Boolean or an array. So for example, I would write var A. Okay. Now you can see here it's written undefined, because undefined is something that you have not assigned anything to this. Okay. So let's say if I write A equal to true. So now the value is true. Now this did not need these inverted commas because this is a Boolean. Okay. So now I can also create something known as arrays in JavaScript. Okay. So let's say I would write var b equal to, and I don't want to put one thing. I want to put multiple things in this. Okay. So for example, if I want to put var laptops equal to, and then, I can put many things. I can put Dell, I can put HP, I can put Lenovo, and so on and so forth. So now, what would be the value in my laptops? If I press enter, you can see there is a small arrow which is created over here. If you can see this arrow, now in this, what it is saying is that 0 position, Dell is there, 1 position, HP is there, second position, the position number 2, Lenovo is there, and yes, MacBook as well, definitely. So now, something which, how many elements are there in this? There are 3 elements, right? But now it is giving the numbering from 0, 1, and 2. So in JavaScript, in fact, in any programming language, array numbering always begins with 0. This is something which you should learn. Computer science professionals, if I wake you up from sleep and I ask you from where the numbering of arrays begin, you have to tell 0. You cannot even by mistake tell 1. Because if you don't remember this fact, then you will create a lot of problems for yourself while coding. Okay. It begins from 0, 0, 1, and 2. Okay. If I want to get the length of this array, I can simply write laptops dot. And now, as soon as I write dot, there are so many options which, Google Chrome is itself giving me. You can find a length. So I will try to find a length. What is the length? Length is 3. That's right. If I write laptops dot, and then, it's giving me so many options. You can find something, you can join it with something, you can push something in it. So I wrote Dell, HP, and Lenovo, but I forgot MacBook. So I would write MacBook. and enter. Now it is giving me back 4, which is the length of the array now. If I see what is there in my laptops, now you will see that I have Dell, HP, Lenovo, MacBook, everything in my array. How to open this console in your Google Chrome? Just press Fn and F12 on your machine. So basically, you have to press the function key F12. If you press F12 on Google Chrome, you will get this particular console. You can see elements. You can see console. Console is where we are working right now. If you cannot press F12, then from Google Chrome, you can go over here on the right side and then in more tools, and then you can go to developer tools over here as well. So as soon as you go to developer tools, your console will open up. Okay. So now you have these, this array over here, and you can just check on your Google Chrome. There are so many things, I just pushed something. Now, if I want to pop the last element, I can simply call the pop method, and that is going to pop MacBook for me. It is going to be removed from the array and pop to me. So many possibilities. You can just keep checking what each of these things does. Again, if you want to, if you don't understand, if you want to really know what each of these things done, where is the documentation you will find of JavaScript? Can people put on chat what I told yesterday? Where is the documentation you will find for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? MDN, that's right. So you can simply go to MDN website and check the documentation. I will also show you in this uh, session today. So now I have so many ways of so many data types, right? Now I just have one thing, var and the name. So how does JavaScript understand, or how does the Chrome understand that which data type it is? It is by the value which I assign it. So if I assign 3, it will understand it is a number. If I assign ruffle, it will understand that it is a string. If I assign a list of things in square brackets, then it will understand that this is an array. So what does that make JavaScript? JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. Dynamically typed means dynamically on runtime while the user is giving input, then it is realizing that, oh, what is the type of this data? Okay. So that's why it is dynamically typed. Okay. And Java is not dynamically typed. It is statically typed. Okay. Now, similar to HTML, we can add comments in JavaScript as well. So if I just write this is a comment and I press enter, nothing happens because there is because comment is not something which your browser or your JavaScript runtime would work on. It is just for understanding purpose. Okay. So we saw how we could create an array, but what exactly is an array? Array is just a collection of data. Okay. And can somebody tell me, if they know about arrays in JavaScript, can different data types come in the same array? So right now I created an array with the same data type, string, 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 Dell, HP, Lenovo, string. Okay. I can also have an array of numbers. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, 200, 300. This is something possible. Here you can see I have created var books, and then I've just put A and B. Can we have different data types in an array in JavaScript? Yes or no, if anybody has any idea. Yes, you can have different data types in an array. I can simply create var mix, and here I would have a, 1, true, and this is absolutely possible. Now in my mix, as you can see, I have a string a number 1, and a boolean true. So that's also possible in an array. Okay. Another way of defining an array is by using new keyword. You can also write new array and then put in the values, but this is something which you should not do, because this gives some problems which you will understand later on, when you work with JavaScript more. Then you will understand why this should not be done, and why it is giving value problems, etc. So obviously, as I told you, that in skilling we create courses from industry professionals, and since we have so many years of experience in the industry, we know what best practices to use in a programming language. So never use new. It is going to make your life easy. Okay. Now the next thing which I want to introduce to you um, is switch statements. Okay. um So switch statement is a part of conditional statements. So let's look at what are conditional statements. So now, first of all, we had this mix, right? How do I access each element of mix? If I write mix 0, then I get 1. If I write mix 1, then I get the number 1. If I write mix 2, then I get the value of true. So to access elements within an array, I can simply use the index of that element and then I will be able to get that value. Now, if I want to check something, I want to check if the value of mix 2 is true or false. Okay. So I will use something like this. I would create an if statement if the value of mix 2 is equal to true. So how would I write? I would write if and then put a round bracket and then I would write whatever value I want to check and then I would write equal to sign, which is actually indicating to the user, indicating to the program that I don't want to assign true. So I assigned true, I assigned values over here, right, using the equal to operator. I don't want to assign anything. So a equal to true means a is assigned with true. I don't want to assign anything. I want to check if it is true or not. So is equal to true. If it is equal to true, then I would want to write something. Console.log if statement works. Okay. This is something which I want to write. So what is the meaning of this console.log? This is the console on which we are working, right? What we are wanting to do is we are wanting to write in on the console. So to writing on the console, we use this statement console.log and then we start with a round bracket and then we put the string value and then we end it with the round bracket. Okay. And if statement has to begin with a curly bracket and end with a curly bracket. Okay, if you see anything on the console, then you can clear it using this round and so basically it's kind of a cancel icon, right? This shows clear console. You can also press Control L. Anyways, you can just press this and you will be good. Your console will be cleared. Okay. If mix2 is true, then you have to log something. If I press enter, you see that it has indeed logged something. It says if statement works. Okay. If I want to write if it is not true, then I simply have to put exclamation mark over here. Mix2 is not true, then you log something. So now now it is not returning anything. Why? Because it is actually true, right? It is not true. Okay. So I should have some part in which if something happens, then do something. If that thing doesn't happen, then do something else. So, so to do that, we have another statement which is known as the else statement. And in else, what I'm going to write is, let's say I will write console.log, and here I'm going to write else works too. Okay, and I press enter. So now as you can see here, my else works too has been printed. So this is the if statement. If some condition, then do something else, meaning the condition is not true, the condition has not really come to true, then do something else. Okay, that is the if statement. And you have also seen else. Or if I want to put different conditions, so if I want to see, so what was mix 1? It was the number 1, right? If mix 1 equal to 2, then do something else. If mix 1 equal to 1, then do something else. So console.log, and I would write, let's say, in else if block. And I press enter. You can see the output is in else if block. Why? Because initially mix1 is equal to 2. No, it is not. So it will not enter this particular block. But it will check else. And now again it is checking if mix1 is equal to 1. Yes, it is equal to 1. Then console.log in else if block. Okay. So this is the if statement and else if statement. Now, if you want to write something like a switch statement, so if I write var and I put, let's say, color, okay, and I write black, okay, and now I want to check if it is a light color or a dark color, whichever the user has put. So in my switch statement, I would check for the value of color, and then I would put case. If it is black, then I would want to log dark, and if it is white, I would want to log light. Okay. Now let's see what is the output of this. So if I have to run this, we can simply run this using this run and debug, and then I would simply use Node.js option over here. And oh, this says dark and light. How is this possible? I said case black, it should only print dark. Only if it is white, then it should put light. Then how come it is outputting both the things? So the problem is that if you have a case and if you output something, and if you forgot to put the break statement over here, then it is actually going to print everything after this. Okay, so I would simply add the break statement, and now when I run this on Node.js, then in my console, just a minute. Okay, I think there's some issue with the new extension which I have installed. Let me copy this and paste it on my console. Okay, so now you can see the output is only dark. Okay, this is something which I wanted. So this is how you could use even switch statement if you want to check multiple things. We also saw the use of break keyword. Okay, now the next thing is loops. And you might have seen this, heard this saying, right? Make hay while the sun shines. That means while the sun is shining, you have to keep making hay. And as soon as the sun stops shining, you don't make hay, because obviously, what's the use of making hay when the sun is not shining, right? So that is kind of a loop you are doing. You are always checking if the sun is shining, then I'm making hay. If the sun is not shining, then I will not make hay. So that is known as loop. Okay, loop in programming language is also known as an iterative statement. So we have different types of loop. We have for loop, we have while loop. Okay, so if I want to essentially not check for one thing, but I want to do something for an entire series of things. So for example, here I'm clearing console. And now let me create a loop. Let's say I have this var I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and what I'm doing is I'm simply logging my I value. So what I did is I created a for loop. So for starting with my I equal to 0, any variable I, you can put j, k, l, m, n, o, anything, any variable I equal to 0, you start from 0 and you want to go all the way to 9. So I less than 10, obviously 9 is less than 10, that is the maximum it can go to. And then I plus plus means I'm incrementing the value of I every time. So once this is happening, then I would log this I. Now when I press enter, see what is happening. Oh my god, it has actually taken every value of I and it has logged it for me. So now I'm getting amazed. Wow, I can do so many things with this. So there is another loop you could use, which is the for in loop. So like, what did we do? We had these laptops, right? So for this laptops, I can create a for loop. But now within this for loop, I can create a var for every laptop in laptops. For every laptop in laptops, I want to do something. I want to console.log that particular laptop. Now here it is only giving these index. So instead of having this index, I want to do laptop in my laptops, for this particular laptop, what is the value I want to know? So now I'm getting Dell, HP, and Lenovo. Now this for and loop is actually really, really important for objects in JavaScript. Okay. So just like we had arrays, another data type is objects. How would we create objects? Now, can you think about objects? Can you think about any object, around you? Let's consider this yellow telephone which we have. It's a pretty antique object right now, for anybody to own. So now this particular object has some values, some properties, right? Let's say its color is yellow, its dial is round, its handle is a wired handle. Okay, this and it is a wired telephone. Okay, so color, type, dial, condition, if it is an old or new one. So these are all properties of any object. So any object around you, you yourself are an object. You would have properties, right? A human being has different properties. Also, we have different methods. So if you have a cup, what are the various methods on that? I can, pick the cup. I can pour the cup. So many things I can do with any particular object, right? Um, so similarly, you have different properties for an object. You have different methods of an object. Both of them together make the whole entity of a object. And since JavaScript is an object-based programming language, all these properties really matter. Okay. So now let's look at how we would create any particular object. So let's create a laptop object. And in this, I want to write that this particular laptop, or I would say, let's say a Dell laptop. Okay. Now, Dell laptop a particular Dell laptop has CPU, let's say Intel i5, and it would have RAM, let's say 8 GB. Okay, let's keep it this much. So now, as you can see, it is not like an array. Array begins and ends with a square bracket, right? Object begins and ends with a curly bracket. And array only has one thing, which can be, identified with the index. An object has multiple things which can be identified with the name you have given. So CPU, Intel i5, RAM, 8 GB. So what I can write is now Dell laptop, and then I want to identify the CPU. So I would simply, type that, and I would get Intel i5. And similarly, if I want to identify how much is the RAM, then I would write RAM, and the answer would be 8 GB. So now I can use the for in loop. This is known as the for in loop. So for var property. So I'm just going to write prop in laptops. Sorry, in Dell laptop. So every property of my Dell laptop I want to loop through, and then I want to log that property. Okay, I would log the prop. So all the properties are being listed CPU, RAM, but I don't want to see the properties only, right? I want to see the values of the properties as well, right? So I would not only log the property, but I want to also log the property values. So these are basically strings, right? Property values. These are all strings. So I can actually concatenate two strings. I can add one string after the other by putting a plus sign. And then let's say I want to put some space over here. And then again, I would put a plus sign. And then I would use the Dell laptop. And then I want to access that particular property which I want. So now, as you can see, we are taking every property from the Dell laptop, and we are wanting to print that. So when I do that, then you can see now I have CPU, Intel i5, RAM, 8 GB. Now this makes more sense, right? So this is how you can loop through the different things in your JavaScript object. There's another type of loop which we have is the while loop. Okay, so while I is less than 10, but before this I have to define what is I, right? So let's say if I say I equal to 0, and in JavaScript we have only var, right? So var I equal to 0, and then I'm taking till I is less than 10, then I want to console.log it. But remember, this is going to make a big issue. because I is always equal to 0, and I am always checking while I is less than 10. That means it is always going to log. That means it is always going to print the value of I, which is 0000, and your Chrome browser will crash. To avoid this, we have to remember to update the value of I. I am incrementing the value of I, and that is something which is going to happen within my while loop. And now, as you can see, it has come from 0 to 9 only, and it has not crashed my browser. Okay, so that's something which we have done. We have used this while loop. Now, what's the difference between for and while loop, which you understood? In for loop, I'm initializing the thing in the same place, I'm checking the condition in the same place, and I'm updating in the same place. In while loop, I have initialized it before. In while, I'm just checking the condition, and within the loop, I have to update the value. Otherwise, if I do not update the value, then what will happen? It would simply keep logging the value of I, which is 0, and it would never stop this execution. This is called as infinite loop. Infinitely it is looping. I is less than 10. Yes, I is 0, so it is less than 10. Let me print it. I is 0 less than 10. Let me print it. I is 0 less than 10. Let me print it. It will keep on doing that, and it will never stop. You might have seen this science fiction movies, right? That sometimes you program the robot in a wrong way, and the robot keeps repeating the same thing again and again, and you get mad. Why is the robot repeating the same thing again and again, and never stopping? So you have to actually remove the battery of the robot, and those kind of things. So we don't want to do that with our program, right? We have to update the value of I within the while loop. Otherwise it is going to give an infinite loop. Okay, so we saw about the while loop, we saw the for loop. There's also a continue keyword. If you want to, so if I write while I is less than 2, and then I don't want to do anything, I just want to continue. Now, even this is going to give you an infinite loop, because what you're doing is continue means coming back and starting and checking again. So you have to first update, and then you should continue. This is just about the continue keyword. This is something which you will understand only when you practice a lot. Okay, and how would you practice? Obviously, you have to look into the documentation, write your own programs, and do something to make it easy. You can take up any course. We also provide the full front end fundamentals course, complete front end course, which is going to include a lot of things. In fact, what I'll do is I'll introduce the course at the end of this session. Let's go ahead for now. So I was saying that you already saw that if you want to repeat the same set of lines again and again, you would loop. But if I want to execute these lines of code in one time, and then after I have asked the user to enter something, done some other processing, then I want to come back and execute the same lines. So now if I have to do that, I need to copy paste the lines again and again in my program, right? You don't need to do that. You can just create a function with those lines of code. Okay, so I'll try to create a new function over here. So I was saying, how would you create a function to be able to call that again and again? Okay, so let's say I create a function called as a, and in which I'm just logging a hi. Okay, so this is how you would create a function: write function, and then the name of the function, and then two round brackets, and then start a curly bracket, and then do something within the function. And how would I call that? I would simply call that by the name of the function, and then those two round brackets. Okay, this is now consoling hi, and you can do whatever you want within this function. So now you can actually even create a function which is taking some argument. So if it is taking any argument, let's say I, and it's simply logging that I for now. That's also possible. You would simply call a with the any value for I. If you call a 4, it is going to execute 4. If you call a with hello world, it is going to print hello world for you. So now you can see that by taking some value, you can actually use that value. So for example, if you want to add two things, okay, so you would create a function sum. In fact, you can even create a new function like this. You create var, and then you have sum equal to, and then you would write a function, and then without writing any name, you would simply put round brackets and then start curly braces, and then add a and b, whatever you have passed. Okay, and that is something which we would log. So you are passing a and b, so put a comma in between and then log them. Log a plus b. Okay, once you do that, if you want to sum 2 and 3, now you would get so this is not a number. Oops, sorry. 2 comma 3. Yeah. Put a and b, pass a and b, and then you would get the value, or put pass any other values. Put 5 and 9, let's say, and now just giving you 14 the way you would expect. So this is how you would create different functions. In fact, you can return some things from functions as well. You definitely have inbuilt functions, just the way you saw, right? For arrays, we have push, pop. So in push, you are passing the value which you want to push in that array. In pop, you are just getting the last value which is pushed into the array. So those are inbuilt functions. We have created our own functions with the name of a. So these functions are really important for you to reuse. And remember that you have a single concern. So these are the two ways in which we saw how we would create functions. And what are the three types of functions we created? One is which is not taking any argument. Another is in which you took arguments. So for the sum function, you took the arguments of a and b. And the third type of function would be a function which would return some value. Okay. We already saw about JavaScript objects. Remember that just like arrays, you can actually access the property of the object using myObj and then square brackets, or you can even use the dot notation. Both of them are same. So we could have used Dell laptop. So now, how would you add JavaScript to the website? Now, this is the main question, right? We saw so much about JavaScript, and you've seen it on the console. But how would you add JavaScript to your website? Again, to add JavaScript, you have these three ways: inline, internal, and external. So for example, if you come to your first HTML page, now in this you already use a kind of a button, right? So on this, what I could do is I could use something like on click, and then in this I would put an alert, and I want to, let's say, alert hello world. Okay, and then I'm saving this. And if I come back and reload my page, and now on click of the submit, you will see that I have this hello world being alerted to the user. So this is inline styling. Okay, sorry, inline JavaScript. This is inline JavaScript. How would we put internal JavaScript? Internal JavaScript similarly in the head or even in the body. In fact, it's better to add it at the end of the body, absolutely at the end. You can add a script tag, and in the script, you can put your JavaScript code. So here, let's say I'm just putting alert in script, and that's it. I'm saving it. And if I reload this page now, you will see that it is alerting to us in script. So this is how you could add inline internal JavaScript as well. I'm just commenting out this part now. And how would you add external JavaScript? Just by linking this custom.js, let's say, whatever external JavaScript you have, you can simply add that in your HTML page. So you can see script src is written. This is the script which Bootstrap is using. You can add similarly script src, and then I would simply write, let's say, custom.js, and this is how you would include your script file in your HTML page. So this is how you would include these things in your page. And whatever you write, whatever JavaScript you write in this file and in internal script tag, all of this is going to be available for you when you reload this page and when you work on this page. Just to check what would happen if I include any JavaScript in the JavaScript file. Before that, you can simply write JavaScript over here, test if everything works properly, then you can copy and paste it in your JavaScript file. So these are just the ways you would include JavaScript. Remember, your DOM, document object model, your entire HTML has to be loaded to be able to manipulate that in your JavaScript. Now, how do you display any particular value? We have already seen console.log. We have seen alert. You can write it as window.alert as well. If I do document.write, and let's say I do a document.write hi. If I enter, you can see everything is gone, and now only I can see hi. Okay, and I have to reload this page now to be able to see other things. Okay. Now you could see that my output has come dark, and the output has come because of this custom.js. We have logged something. That's why, so this has been included properly. That is something which is being shown over here. Now, if I want to change some value, so let's say, for example, if I just do an inspect over here, and now you can see that in H1, this is a heading is there. I want to change the value in H1. So what I would do is I can simply select that element in my document object model. And how do I select that element? What I can do is I can do a document dot get element by ID, by class name, by name, by tag name, so many options. Okay. Let's say I would do by tag name. And in this, I would put H1. And this is going to give me the element by or I can use document dot query selector. And using this query selector, I can actually put all the ways we have used CSS selectors. So we can use any, let's say, H1 or P or IMG or anything, or we can use any class like dot user, or we can use any ID like hash register, which we created yesterday, right? So let's say, for example, for H1, I want to change the value. So I can use inner text, and then, I can change the value to this is H1. And now you can see that the value in my page has also changed to this is H1. Or I could have used something like inner HTML as well, and both of them would be using the same. But I could also include HTML tags in this inner HTML. So in this, I could have actually added something else in HTML tags. So this is also possible, but you need to select that. Let's try to select something else. Let's try to select our image. Okay. And now as soon as I select an image, what I can do is I can add some event listener events. This is a good question. Does anybody have any idea about events? Events in JavaScript. If you have, you can say yes. If you do not have, you can type no. Okay, so events are basically things which occur on your page. So let's say if there is a button. So what one event can be that the user has clicked this button, and that is the click event. Okay. So what I did over here, I put on click equal to alert. What I am doing is that it is handling the click event. Okay. On click equal to hello world. It is essentially by doing an alert. Okay. So let's say we want to even to always listen. Okay, something is happening on my image tag. Okay, something is happening on my image tag. I should definitely keep listening whether that event is happening or not. So let's say I want to put a click, and if I put the value of click in this, that means it is always going to check if the event of click has occurred on this image or not. And it is going to call some function. Okay, let's say I defined it as say hello, but now say hello is not defined. That's why it is giving me an error. So first I have to define the say hello method. Okay, and I've already, written this say hello method for you. So say hello can be you see one way of creating a function using a function word. Another way of creating a function is this arrow function. Arrow function means just put your arguments in the square, in the round brackets. Whatever the name of the function is, just do an equal to, put it in the any arguments. But right now I don't need any arguments, and then use an arrow type of a symbol, which is just an equal to and then a greater sign, and then put your value, whatever you want to execute in your console.log. So what this means is that say hello equal to, and then your round brackets, and then equal to, and then a greater sign, and then your curly braces, and then do a console.log hi, let's say. Okay, so this is my say hello, and now let me go back and execute this document.query selector img dot add event listener, click say hello, and now I have executed this. Let me clear the console now. And now when I click on this particular image, can you see this hi which has been printed? Now I'm clicking on it again. Can you see a two times hi? Can you see three times hi? I'm clicking it so many times and it is coming so many highs. Okay, so what I've done, I have added an event listener of click, which is being defined on this say hello function, on what, on my image. If I want to remove that, I can simply type remove event listener, and that's going to remove that. Now I am clicking it so many times on the same image, it is not coming. If I again add it, then I'm clicking on the image, you can see so many highs are coming. And if I again remove it, you will see that I'm clicking and nothing is happening. So this is a very fun part of JavaScript. You can manipulate this whole document object model. You can change text. You can add event listeners on different things. You can change the HTML. You can do something on the. You can do so many things. In fact, why not I show you where you can get about all the events. So if you simply go to this particular link of MDN documentation, this is the documentation which I was talking about. This is the event reference for JavaScript. You can even just Google events in JavaScript MDN. Okay, you will get this link. And now you will be able to see that animation can happen, DOM manipulation can happen, so many things can happen. Okay, for mouse, what are the various things for relating to the mouse? Okay, you can see that you can mouse in, mouse out. You can do so many things, and some sample code is given. So if mouse event of click occurs, then what can be done. So many possibilities are there for events. Okay, now if you want to understand your entire document object of your page, so you can simply install an extension of Google Chrome, and that is known as HTML tree generator. Just Google HTML tree generator, and you will be able to find an extension of Google Chrome, and you can install it. So when you install this HTML tree generator and you click it, then you will see that it would load the entire tree format of your web page. So it's taking some time over here. Let me try to load it for our master's page. Let's see. Okay, so in this master's page of Skillink, this has like this entire tree model. So within HTML there is head, and there are so many metas, and there are so many links, and then it starts with the body, and within body there is this first div, and within the first div there is an image, a span, and then another span in which you have two anchor tags. Okay, and the details of these anchor tags also you can find it over here. Okay, so this is how your entire tree would get generated for your web page. Okay, let's try this again. Probably it's not happening because this page is a local page, but try to install this tree generator and you will be able to use it. So you've seen about HTML tree generator. You've seen different document object model properties and methods. How you would select them. So you already saw document.query selector. You know all the selector CSS selector ways you can do. For example, again F12, we could do document.query selector, and then I would use, let's say, the user class. Okay, so as you can see, this username has the user class, even the password has the user class, right? So yeah, class equal to user for username, class equal to password for class equal to user for password as well. So now query selector dot, and then if I just press enter, you will see that this is only selected the first one. So if you just put query selector dot user, it will just select the first one. If you want everything, then you have to write query selector all. And now it has given me an array of two things. Both the things will give me the value. First one is, or let's try to, because this is becoming a little difficult for me to explain, let's try to take the first value as 0, and this is, class equal to user username, and then the second value as 1, and this is span class equal to user password. So this is how you can get an array as return to your query selector, and then you will be able to, let's say, add any event or anything which you want. So let's say query selector all, I want to add an event on my password, so I can just do an add event listener, and then I can keep on coding the remaining things which I want. Okay, so this is how you would select everything in your DOM and add different events for different things. So you saw query selector, you saw query selector also. If you don't want to really use query selector, although this is my favorite, but you could also do a get element by ID, get element by class name. So if you do document dot get element by ID, and then I would pass on the register ID. Now, what is this register ID on? This is on this register a word, right? So if I press enter, you will see that yes, I have gotten that particular element. And now on this, what I can do is I can put any event or any function which I want to call on this. Okay, so this is also how you could use get element by ID. You could use get element by class name or get elements by tag name. You've also seen about events, right? DOM objects, they have events like button has click, mouse has mouse over, mouse out, keyboard has key up, key down. All this information you will get on that web page which I have shared of the MDN documentation. Okay, so there are so many event types, and that is going to give you so much of power to manipulate the entire page. You might have seen there are so many websites, right? In which when you go and when you start going to cancel the browser page, then it suddenly pops up something that don't leave for sign up for our newsletter, or something, some pop-ups would come for different websites. Do you if you have seen any of them, please type yes on the chat box. If you have seen any kind of models which pop up if you try to leave a particular website um, as an advertisement or to subscribe to newsletter or anything, if you have seen that, just type yes in the chat box. What's the difference between query selector and get element by ID, or get element by class name or tag name? Query selector is giving you a lot of flexibility to use CSS selector type things. Like, as I said, class can be used with a dot sign and ID can be used with a hash sign. You can also use get element by ID and get element by class name. That's also not an issue. So all of these are valid syntax of JavaScript. So yeah, some of you have seen those kind of models which come up. So why do they come up? Because they are able to understand, oh, this user has now taken the mouse over that particular region in which they are wanting to go to cancel button. Okay, so they understand that event, and they are posting that model if you do that. So much of power you get. On a button click you can do so many things. On scrolling you can do so many things. So you can just keep checking the events of JavaScript and keep working with them In fact, you can create an entire e-commerce website or an entire social media website by whatever you have learned till now. It's really very easy. And whatever you have not learned, I really want to make sure that you know how to use the documentation and you know how to use Stack Overflow website, so that it really helps you um, in your um, in your coding journey. In fact, um, let me also tell you about an extension. Let's say you forgot some syntax. You want to, okay, you want to only add an event on load of body. So entire document should be loaded. Only then your JavaScript should load. That is something which you want to, you know, check. Um, I don't understand why this is not giving an issue. Okay, let's say you want to check about JavaScript objects. Okay, so now when you try to search something, then instead of searching in different links, you would simply get the reply by other developers using this grepper. So what you can do is you can simply download this grepper extension, and you will be able to see the various code which people have written in uh, for this particular search result of JavaScript object. Okay, and simply you can simply copy and then understand, okay, how it is be. You can start working on this particular thing. So this is another good extension which you can use. Now, once you have understood this thing, I would really want you to ask me any questions. So put your questions in the chat box. But before that, before answering your questions, just put yes, you can definitely add array inside of an object. So again, going back to the console, if you have, our obj, and then within an object, you can add objects. Within an object, you can add an array. So arr, and then, I'm putting a, comma, 1, comma, b, anything. And this is absolutely fine. What you can do is obj.arr, and now you are getting this array of a, 1 and b, whatever you have defined. And you can even define an object within an object. So let's say you would write obj dot, and within this curly braces you can write obj2 and then colon and then another object, and then start typing whatever you want to add in this particular object. Okay, so an object within an object is also possible. Just make sure that the name is always there, because objects definitely have name value pairs. So these are key value pairs. So all the things which are keys, like for example arr is a key, and all the things which are values, like for example this particular value of this array, this is a key value pair. Okay, so if you have any questions, definitely please post it on the chat box. Yes, you can definitely add animated loadings using JavaScript. Since we only had 4 hours to do this bootcamp, I could not include those things, but you can simply, Google, because whatever you have understood till now you know the basic syntax of JavaScript, so what if you want anything extra? You can simply Google that and check, okay, there are so many different articles, so many different websites giving you certain, hacks and tricks of using some code which you can simply add on in your website. Okay, so that is also possible. Till then, why not I show you, since you have taken so much of time to do this particular bootcamp, why not I show you the remaining syllabus which you should do. This is the syllabus of our front-end development course of our master's program. This is something which I want to show you exclusively. This is not something which is available for everybody to see, but I want you to understand, how HTTP works, browser works, we have the role of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We have seen this architecture diagram. But what are the various things like in HTML, which we have not yet covered: iframes, graphics, media, different APIs, how you would validate HTML. In CSS3, we've seen about box model and sizing methods, etc. But then how to change the opacity, how to create better drop downs, how to, style forms, how would you style an entire e-commerce website using Flexbox and media queries for responsiveness. All of that we have not yet seen. Even using Bootstrap 4, how you could create the entire e-commerce website being responsive, adding carousels, adding cars, cards of Bootstrap to it and navigation bar of Bootstrap to it, something which we have not yet seen. Then we discuss about the principles of building a user interface in the course. We see, how you could have natural looking websites, good looking websites. What are the various principles which would make a user use your website more and more? Okay. Then we would complete the creation of the e-commerce website, the styling part of it. And then, since you already have seen the basic syntax, the conditionals and the looping and everything, you have also seen that you have uh, this, you could manipulate the document object model, but you have not seen, how you could use things like closures, how you could use this keyword, how you've also seen about arrow functions, just a basic idea about what are arrow functions. But then, all the other ES6 syntax, ES6 is ECMAScript 6, which is the latest version of JavaScript, which is definitely required for you to know to work with any advanced library or framework, Angular, React, or Vue.js. If you want to use, you need to know those kind of syntax and those kind of things. So that is something which we cover. We also cover a popular library of JavaScript, which is jQuery, and we complete the website behavior with JavaScript. We also see JSON. JSON is something which I have noted you in that this is JavaScript object notation. This is used to send data and receive data to the server and from the server. So how do we do that? All of that we see in this particular course. To check the master's program link, I could also introduce the remaining courses for you. You could check that, you could begin with learning front-end development, and then once you understand everything about front-end development, you could learn another programming language of the backend. Let's say we have taken Java because it's a very strong programming language, object-oriented programming concepts, which is extremely essential for a full-stack developer. Okay, so this is something which we teach in the Java programming language. And once we understand the Java programming language, we want to clear the coding interviews of companies, right? So to clear the coding interviews, you need to know data structures and algorithms. So to understand data structures and algorithms, we start from the very basics. We start with arrays, strings, and lists, and we go all the way to the advanced algorithms like dynamic programming, greedy algorithms, etc. So once you complete to crack any coding interview of any good product company like Amazon, Google, etc. If you know, Google is very fond of dynamic programming. So once you are able to convert interview experience into getting a good job, you will be able to enter any good, top companies, product companies. To complete a full stack, it's not just the front end which you need to know, right? You need to understand databases. And if you really try to do a course on databases, you course which is relating to only relational databases or only the SQL language or only MongoDB, or a third type of course for an in-memory database like Redis. We put everything together. That's why we call everything about databases course. In this, you will understand everything about databases from the basics to the advanced, procedural language, how you would scale the database, for example, phase it. So all of these websites, they have so many millions and billions of users. How they have scaled their database to cater to so many users. Now, so many users are using them at the same time. So how this concurrency control is happening. And then lastly, you have to obviously understood the front end, you understood the database, you have to understand the back end as well. So again, we use Java programming language to understand how we could code the back end using different frameworks of Java like Spring Boot, etc. We connect with a NoSQL database or a relational database like MySQL and complete the entire website. This is how you create your entire portfolio in this particular course. If you have done this, you can definitely call yourself a full stack web developer, and then you can start with this is not just an investment of time and money for entry level jobs, but for going ahead 5 to 10 years of your career. So you really need to understand how you would well, right? As soon as you become a little bit experienced, you need to crack system design interviews. So for those kind of interviews as well, you need to understand the various design patterns which industry uses for scalable systems. So this is something which you would learn in the last course. So this is just an introduction. If you want to know more, you can just, contact Skilling support for that. If anybody has any questions relating to front end we have studied in this boot camp, you can post your questions now, and we will take up that right now. I hope you have understood how you would use Bootstrap. Just use Bootstrap documentation. I hope you have understood how you would use JavaScript, and the various things which you can do in JavaScript. All of those things. Advanced topics of JavaScript also you can definitely try to understand how to fetch data using JavaScript. This is something which you can simply Google, and you will be able to understand using Stack Overflow forums and using the documentation. You will be able to understand how you would use you could parse that data and then show that data on the website. That is the next thing which you should do. So why don't you create a simple login and registration system or a login and registration page, and try to use JavaScript, CSS, and HTML to make the page look good, and events on the click of the button, etc. And once you click, let's also check if that username exists in your, let's say, JSON or not. So you could simply use a fetch and fetch from whatever URL you have, and then do some parsing of that. So this is something, the next thing which I want you to see, how you could check username exists in your let's say JSON document or not, or JSON object or not, which you can see. Once you complete your login and registration page and you have coded some things from the bootcamp, why don't you go to github.com, create your own profile, and then upload your web page, whatever you have created in this particular bootcamp on GitHub, to show to everybody that you have done this. So what you can do is you can simply go to your profile, create a repository. You can click on this new and create a repository on GitHub, and then you just put the repository name, Skilling Bootcamp frontend. This is something which you can add. You can put some description as well. Make it a public repository. Remember to add a README file, and then you would be able to create a repository. Repository, you would see that you can make changes in this particular README file. So you have this README. You can definitely make changes over here, and whatever code you have. So let's say I have this, code in which I have this, my first HTML page. So what you can do is you can just rename this to login or register page or anything which you want. And then you have this custom.js, style.css. Upload all of this on your repository using, so you can just, upload files and then let your files, or you can simply drag these files, whatever you want to upload. So let's say I want to upload these 3 files. I'm just uploading them. And then once this upload is complete, then you will be able to commit the changes. Once you commit the changes, then those files would be visible to everybody in this world. They will be able to see how you have coded, what you have learned from this particular bootcamp. And this is not the end. You have a long way, and you have to create your own big website to show to recruiters or employers that in our master's course we make sure that our students are creating a full-fledged. So I can even show that to you. So in the front-end course, we give certain mockups to the students. This is the home page of the e-commerce website which they are supposed to implement. Okay, so this is how their website should look. Now, this, if you have understood camp which you have attended, you will realize that this is created using different HTML tags. Like one, you could just add these 3 icons. You can create this kind of a search bar. Just add that element. This is simply an input element, right? Input type equal to text, and then you have another image. and then this some number, and all of this is within one div, right? And how they have put it in one row? Can somebody guess how they have put it in one row? Just guess with whatever you have studied till now, how you can put all these elements in one row in different columns. Can somebody suggest? Today only you learned it, how you could put elements in one row and give different column values to that. Yes, you can use Flexbox, but today we learned Bootstrap, right? We learned Bootstrap, that that you create a new row, div class equal to row, and then in different columns of this row, you can add elements to it, right? So that is also something which you can do. So you can create all these different rows. This is a Bootstrap carousel. You can use Bootstrap cards for this. Even this latest products and everything. These are all Bootstrap navigation bars. All of this you can use HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap to create this entire page, and that's exactly what our students are doing, and they get doing so many things. In fact, so many pages they are creating. They have completed creating this entire e-commerce website, and that is something which other students which are in progress are doing, and you could also do it. Once you do that, you can definitely call yourself a good front-end developer, and you can start applying for front-end development jobs. What can be better than this? So try to understand how you have worked on this, and try to showcase that to prospective people using GitHub, and you will be good. And then other things like resume, LinkedIn profile creation, those kind of support also we provide in our master's development program for full stack engineers. So once you have all your social profiles ready, your resume ready, and your big project ready, again you can simply go to readme.md over here, and you can type anything which you want to write in this. So you can simply click on edit this file, start writing over here that this is the sample code used for the boot camp. And you can keep writing. This readme documentation is very important. um, Yes, why don't you do something? Why don't you simply go to my GitHub handle, go to this Skilling Bootcamp front end, um, repository, and then you will be able to find the code which I have used in this repository. So I've just uploaded it. You can just go and check that in this repository, and you will be having a kind of reference whatever you have learned. And make sure to revise whatever you have learned. If anybody has any questions, you can ask me, because we will be ending at 11. So we have some 8 minutes to answer your questions.